Hello, I'm Eric.
I'm Mike.
This is the Caregiver Experience, and today we're going to talk about guilt. It ain't just a river in Egypt. Yeah.
I don't know one caregiver who hasn't suffered some form of guilt. I should have done this. I wish I had done this. It's second guessing yourself at all the time. It eats me alive at times.
Yeah.
And yes, there are plenty of places that you can go that'll explain why you shouldn't feel that way and how it's not your fault.
You can rationalize anything, though. You could always say, I shouldn't feel this way, but you can't tell your brain not to feel a certain way.
If you're feeling it, you're feeling it.
Yeah,
you have to work through it. That's what you need to do. Good friend of mine says to me when I mention, depression and talk about guilt, he covers his eyes. He's like, I'm so guilty. I feel it's like there are things I don't talk about because I feel like it's all my fault. Like if I had only stepped in and said something earlier, I think my mother would be alive today. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, that is some burden but in some way, I feel that all the time.
Yeah.
Before my wife went to the hospital, she was in a wheelchair all the time. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying to myself, if only I sacrifice more of my time in addition to going to work and doing all these things to exercise her more, I think I could improve her quality of life.
Yeah, I feel like that every day about exercise. Yeah.
And then she goes into the hospital and I'm thinking she's going to die.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, if only I had done this. Now she's home and she's in the bed and I'm saying the exact same thing to myself. And I'm so overwhelmed that I can't do anything. But in order to torture myself, I make sure that I don't exercise. So, there. So,
that makes me also.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but this is what your head goes through.
But it's interesting because I think sometimes I like that when my mother goes to the hospital because
you get a little break.
But there's also a shot clock. What I mean by that is after she comes out of the hospital, you get home services. It's a standard thing.
Yeah.
So you'll get a certain number of visits. That is, my mother has Medicare, so Medicare will pay for, I think, like 6 weeks of home services. And that includes physical therapy, includes occupational therapy, includes an aide.
Speech therapy,
social worker. All these different people come. And what's good is when you have the home physical therapy, you get on a routine.
Yeah.
So, and also I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I don't have to exercise my mother. I don't have to feel guilty about anything. I just have to be awake to open the door for her.
Yeah.
So, and I have to get her ready. Yeah, it's short-lived. That's right.
That is the problem with all that.
See, I'd like to have insurance for that, to have permanent home physical therapy, that kind of thing, because besides everything else, we're not trained physical therapists. There are things that we don't know, and they tailor the activity to the person that they're dealing with. So, and that should also kind of relieve your anxiety and depression or your guilt about, having to care for your wife in terms of exercise, because you're not 100% sure if this is exactly what they would do. Are they doing it better than you're doing it? But then again, you could use that as an excuse not to do it at all. But yeah, I feel guilty about especially that kind of exercise. I think about that all the time, that, my mother's kind of just sitting and she's not getting up every hour. She's not,
Or if only I had, maybe play games with them.
Yeah.
Set aside some time. If I, for other people, it could be, if I only visited them more.
Yeah.
Maybe their mental state would be better if I'm like, oh, it's such a dangerous, it's so dangerous to go down that path.
Yeah.
But the more overwhelmed you are,
mm-hmm.
the bigger that becomes.
Right.
And then everything is I should have. I'm a terrible person. I'm useless. I'm doing nothing. Doesn't matter how many people say how great you are.
Right.
What a good job you're doing. You're destroying yourself internally.
I mean, I get guilty about being frustrated with my mother. I get guilty about that I lose patience with her. She's not doing anything wrong. She's being who she can be, especially with my mother, because you know how brilliant my mother was when she was younger. Mm-hmm. It's so strange to see her lose her intellect, because she was like like a genius, like brilliant. My mother's never stayed at a great like rehab place after a hospital stay. None of them are great that we've went to. But that's also goes into guilt because
Yes.
because I feel guilty leaving her in a facility like this because at the same time that she's in this facility, there's nothing for me to do. I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
I feel like now you can relax. You don't have to worry. She's taken care of. Nothing's going to happen. But then when you go to these places and you visit them, you can see how poorly people are being taken care of. I was there. I was at one of these places, and a woman was walking around after having like hip replacement because she also had dementia, and she was walking around, and I saw her walking in the hallway, and I saw her fall on her face, and there's nobody was there, and
Yeah.
and I didn't know her status or anything, but
Right.
When the nurse came a few seconds later, and she says, "You're not supposed to be walking." What?
Dementia patient. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, and so I feel like even though I should be able to relax when she's in that position, the only time I really feel that I can relax is when she's actually in the actual hospital, when there's a big staff of people. But in terms of guilt, it's the only time I don't really feel guilty when she's in a somewhat reputable facility that you can kind of relax.
No.
No, that's true.
I bet what happens is you finally have free time because when you get to a good hospital that they're actually doing their job, and you feel comfortable enough to leave your mother over there. Because I did the same thing. I finally have a night to myself, a day to myself. So I sit down and I relax.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty that I have this time that I should be next to her.
Yep.
So you're still guilting yourself. It's like,
but also it's a little bit different situation because of your relationship to your wife.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right though. I do feel guilty about.
I spent 7 months getting there at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, leaving about 3:30 in the afternoon, just because traffic was so crazy getting home. I couldn't add traffic on top of the stress of doing that. 7 days a week for 7 months. I was either at a hospital or, luckily they had good Wi-Fi, so I worked while I was there. But every single doctor, I did all that stuff, and I added all that stress to myself. But you're right. Get into a good hospital, I was finally able to sit back and say, oh, okay, I can be the husband now.
Right.
I don't have to be your advocate for like, a few hours or a few days.
Well, I guess I'm saying also that I feel less guilty and less anxiety, but not because of the quality of the hospital, but because we have our own doctor at this place.
Oh,
because I trust him. Somehow this guy is always there. I don't understand. I don't know if he sleeps at all, but literally 3 o'clock in the morning, I can text him, and because he's also kind of a friend at this point, and I could say, "Oh, my mother's coming." He's like, "Oh, I'm in the hospital right now." I'm like, "What the hell? How are you in the hospital?" And then it's funny because we also have another doctor who's a pulmonologist who I'm also a little bit friendly with the guy, and this guy is also insane. He does his rounds at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then he goes to his practice and works until 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, what? How? And he's got a family.
Wow.
So, but you know what? Their sacrifice gives me a break. It makes me, and it gives me a little bit of peace of mind. And it's not the quality of the hospital; it's the quality of these people.
Yes.
It's that these people are above the other people that are there, and they've called out the staff and say, this is not going to go on. And they have authority.
Mentally,
and they tell me what's going on.
Those people are good enough that you can say, here are the car keys.
Yeah.
and sit back and you can say, okay, I could just forget about it because I know
that it's like a self-driving car
for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's what
I can say, let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
Let it be free.
It's such a pleasure to, not have to worry about that because it's so bad just to constantly be worried and, and that's what it is when she's home. And like I said, worrying about her in the morning and then feeling guilty about, maybe, I shouldn't be languishing in my bedroom. I should be downstairs. Don't check the camera. Just go downstairs. And,
But then if you take free time, you feel guilty that you took free time.
Yeah.
So it's Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's session, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe with alerts on to join us for other caregiver discussions. Most importantly, just the two of us talking doesn't make a group. We need you to contribute to our discussions in the comments below. We'd love to hear about your experiences and any suggestions, including future topics. That's all for now, but remember that by helping each other, we are not alone.